now I'm going to show you how to quickly add a lender into your development project and estimate the likely interest cost. So this development, just to give a bit of background, is for 10 apartments. We've got all of our costs shown here on the right. So our total project cost is £5.498 million. So right now you can see the developer is putting in 100% of those total costs as equity. So what we're going to do is introduce a lender. So we click add a lender, we give them a name, let's call it senior debt. We can enter the estimated loan amount either by an amount in your currency, a percentage of the total development costs, or a percentage of the GDV. So I've put in 70% of total costs, which is a good assumption. Then we can input our lending fees. So I'm going to assume 1% in and 1% out on the facility, but you can edit these fees, delete them, or add additional fees if needed. Now to calculate the interest, we're going to choose the type of interest, which is going to be on drawn balances, as that's the case for the majority of development finance. That applies an S-curve to the construction phase of your project based upon the term which we're going to enter down here. So the first step is going to be to enter our interest rate. So let's assume 7% on an annual basis. You can also enter monthly interest rates using that button there. We're then going to assume that we're going to have estimated interest calculation, because that's the purpose of what we're trying to do right now. And we're going to set the term. So let's say this is a 12-month project. I'm going to enter the term of 12 months, and you can see immediately that interest figure is shown. You can always tweak your interest rate if you want to, and this will highlight the total lender cost at the bottom here. So now if I collapse this section, we can see the summary now shows that the borrowing is a total of £3.8 million and the developer's equity is £1.8 million going into the project. So we've now very quickly estimated the likely costs of borrowing on this project. So now I'm going to show you how to calculate the likely interest of a project by using the cash flow. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to introduce a lender into the mix. Right now we can see that 100% of the total cost is being covered by the developer's equity. So we're going to introduce a lender by clicking add a lender. We'll give this lender a name, and we'll set the facility size. So I'm going to assume 70% of total development costs, but we can also enter the amount in your currency or as a percentage of GDV. Next, we're going to enter the fees. So let's assume 1% in and 1% out for this deal, but you can actually change these fees, delete them, or add new fees. Now with the interest, we're going to make an assumption that the interest is on drawn balances. We're going to assume an interest rate of 7%, and a project term of 12 months. So you can now see that we've got an estimated interest cost, which assumes a construction S-curve, which is typical, and obviously only paying interest on those drawn balances. But what I've gone ahead and done is created a cash flow for this project. So this is my cash flow. I'm buying the site on month 1. Then I've got my prelims and my build costs going throughout the project, and my sales coming in from month 11 onwards. From there, what I'm able to do is change how the interest is calculated. So rather than it being estimated, I can now click on cash flow, which will actually show me the interest amount based upon drawn balances generated by the cash flow. Now this is great for understanding the effects of timing from your cash flow, because I can jump into the cash flow and make a change. So let's say, what happens if our sales get pushed out by 3 months? So rather than starting on month 11, let's now assume that our sales are going to start on month 14, and we expect to sell 2 units per month. I can make that change to the cash flow. You can see that in month 14 that sale is coming in. And now when I go over to the finance section, you can see that our interest has jumped up massively from about £140,000 to £211,000. And we're now borrowing the money for 15 months rather than the original 11 or 12 months that it showed at the beginning. So really useful tool to be able to see the effects on time, how time affects the cost of your borrowing. In this video, I'm going to show you how to add finance into your project to match the terms given to you by a lender. So we've already created the project here, and we can see that the development has total costs of just under £5.5 million. What we're going to do is we're going to add a lender in. So we'll give it your bank's name. So I'll just say bank's name for now. We will take the assumed facility size. So let's just say that they are lending £4 million on the facility size, which is about 50% of GDV in this case. They've also told you that their fees are 1% in and 1% out of the facility. What we're going to do now is we're going to enter the interest rate, which you've been given on the bank's terms. And now, rather than estimating the interest or generating it from the cash flow, we're just going to click on override. So now what you can do is you can input the bank's terms. So let's say that they've assumed an interest figure of £200,000 and a term of 12 months. You can now match those lenders' terms, understand what it means in terms of your equity contribution and what's required, and also look at these key metrics, so what your return on cost is, your return on equity, etc., when you take all of this into consideration.